Peace be with you. Y'all, I had a really good day. I actually made a bunch of videos, but like they're having troubles uploading, so I'm kind of annoyed. So I'm gonna start all over, and I realized, I was like, you know what? You know what will like help people out? If I just be openly vulnerable. So I'm gonna like unpack stuff. I got things that I found. I went through some photo albums because I was trying to find something so we can like watch me live, figure stuff out, and like cry and lose my shit maybe, right? It might be fun as I unpack memories that I haven't processed. And so I found something, I found a connection. We're gonna talk about cats. Because it's one of my 12 footprints, I realized. And I was going through my albums, and we're gonna talk about like, right? Because this represents my first cat, Mittens, and this represented a future cat that I was gonna get, which is Ophelia, which was actually this little girl right here, right? And I found this, I coincidentally found this. Dude, this was like one of my exes. This was the first girl that this was the girl that broke up with me right before I went to Turkey, y'all. Oh, it was so awesome. And she was enlisted. Y'all, when the concept of like telling people who you can and cannot love, I was like, bet, watch me. Like, you can tell me, you can try to give me anything, right? People at the unit were aware that like we were dating, right? I was the total, oh my gosh, doll, this is funny. You know, like horrible, this is when I was a resident. I was a resident, and I dated my assistant. Oh, it was my first assignment after dental school. And, right, the concept of love, when someone tells me what I can, I cannot do when I love someone, I'll be like, bet, watch what I do, right? And so she was enlisted, and I was like, I don't care. I saw a beautiful woman, and a beautiful woman loved me back. She actually pursued me first. But, oh, she was extraordinary. And people were kind of aware, like, low key, right? It's very obvious when like someone's dating, right? You can totally tell. And I feel like I was like on Horrible Bosses. Remember the movie Horrible Bosses with Jennifer Aniston, like the sexy dentist? Oh, I actually think I dressed as her one time for Halloween. Oh, that's funny. I remember I did that in Turkey. Anyways, yeah, I dated my assistant, yo. That's like the total bro move. You're like, oh, you did that, right? Because like how many people get exposed or like shamed for like dating their assistant, and it gets like botched and ends completely bad? Oh yeah, this ended bad, and I'm like, love it. I loved every second of it, because that heartbreak, oh, she ended up breaking up with me. And to be quite frank, I was young and naive, right? When I love, I love. She had already been married and divorced by the time we met. So I didn't see any red flags. I was just like, you're awesome, right? Because I don't perceive red flags like that. I perceive them as opportunities. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful human being that loves me and I love them. Let's see where this goes, right? It ended in like a huge blazing ball of inferno, right? I guess that's why we're unpacking this. Because when I left for Turkey, right? Because Turkey's a remote assignment. And when I left for Turkey, she didn't even come to the airport to say bye to me. And I was like, ooh, that hurt. And then it was my birthday, because I landed in Turkey, and it was like right around my birthday, like the first month. And I remember her text, like I was sending her pictures, like, hey, I made it, you know, like, and she ended up texting me being like, you're old, get your own life, or something like that. And I was like, oh, that was unique. And so I never talked to her again, and that was it. Oh, that was a bummer, man. That was such a good opportunity too, because I learned so much. That was actually, ooh, we're gonna share this. I hit her out of anger one time. I remember that. Oh, we're gonna share this, y'all. Yeah, we're gonna unpack this. I ain't got nothing to hide. This is how you grow, right? This is how you show, like, this is a safe space, y'all. I'm gonna demonstrate to y'all how it's a safe space. The woman I loved, at one point, I lost my temper so much. I was so frustrated, and I couldn't figure out how to communicate that I invoked physical violence. I hit her. And I slapped her. I didn't like punch her. I slapped her. But that triggered something in me, and I was like, whoa, why would you do that? And I was trying to think, why would I do that? Like, I mean, as a kid, I never really fought anyone. I never really was into violence. Although in middle school, it was a cool thing in Korea to like go fight after school, like, you know? And so I tried it one time, and I fought a girl with a cast. Y'all, no, don't feel sorry for her. Feel sorry for me. Do you know how hard a cast is? Right? It's hard. And she just kept like hitting me with it, and I would just go like this, and I just didn't want to fight, right? Because I thought it was cool, so I thought I would try to like, you know, be like like a big boss or something, right? Try fighting, right? Oop, oop, oop. Right? Physical violence. Oop. I tried physical violence. I tried fighting in middle school. And I remember the girl had a cast on and I kept putting out my arm to block. And my whole arm got like torn up because the cast, y'all, like imagine someone trying to like beat on you like with their cat, like swinging their arm like a, right? That was an evolutionary advantage that she cheated. And then finally I got so scared that I punched her. And then that was it. And then the fight was over because I don't want to do this anymore. I remember coming home actually. I told my parents it was like some after school program and me and my dad were going to do something or I don't know, some event. And he was like, what happened to your arm? And I was like, oh, I fell at the playground. And he was like, huh. I'm sure he was full familiar being like, I was a kid once too, right? I'm aware. No. Yeah, very unique way to cut your arm in just very specific spots, just right there. Like, how did that accident occur? Oh, he never pushed it further, and it never happened again, actually. Oh, that's so funny. I forgot about that. Okay, anyways, so when I hit her that one time, and we had to talk about it, and I was just like, yeah. And I think, that tied back to actually because I remember one time, my mom might have told us, this was before we were born, or when we came on scene, but my mom, when she first came over, because my mom didn't speak English when they got married, right? You know, it used to be a thing where like G.I. Joes or like army people will get stationed overseas and they'll come back with a wife, right? It was like a thing. And so my dad did that too. And I think at one point my dad did hit my mom, and my mom told his grandma, or his mom, and my dad's grandma like reamed him, being like, don't you ever raise your like that at women, or don't you ever raise your hand, period, at someone like that. And so I think that story, because my dad, like, you know, when you grow up, you have like spankings, right? When you're normal. So that was like an environment where I grew up, but then the culture again has changed, right? We don't necessarily invoke, because the physical violence, that type of teaching and bringing up invoked a lot of, it cascaded out, right? And we're seeing the effects now in a couple generations later of that type of upbringing where like physical violence and like spanking and lashings and things like that were taking too far, perhaps, right? There wasn't enough discernment or understanding or articulation of thought after that event occurred, where it provoked perhaps a higher threshold of violence, physical violence across the species, right? And I even saw it in myself, right? I hit another human being. And then like right when I was little, I thought it was cool to go fight, to go try to go out in the schoolyard and like literally go beat up on another human being. Wild logic, I'm telling you, wild logic as a kid. Even as an adult. But, oh yeah, we're going to talk about my cat. I guess we'll just keep talking about this. And so after that, we actually recovered fine from that or whatever. But then, actually, that reminds me, because one of my exes... No, what was that? Was that... One of my exes, we got into this... Well, she broke up with me like 5 or 6 times, right? It was like an up and down thing. And at one point, because I always tried to have conversations. And when someone doesn't want to have conversations, I get frustrated, right? I'm like a little kid that like take to tantrum. At least I used to be. Before, when I was still trying to learn to navigate, basically to become an adult, y'all. Like, I didn't become an adult till I was like in my 30s. No lie. It was a very aggressive, experience to just like learn to be an adult. Y'all, when people say like, whatever you reap what you sow, oh buddy, did I reap what I sowed. Man, what other cosmic oopsies did I do? I'm trying to think about cosmic oopsies related to when I tried to invoke a state of like violence on someone because I was so upset. Oh yeah, that's what I did. I was like holding onto a cup when we were like yelling at each other, and she was being like, I forget what she was doing. It just really, really upset me because she wouldn't articulate herself, and I didn't understand her method of communication. And so I was so angry that I took my glass and I just threw it as hard as I can at the TV. And I was like, I'm aware that I'm about to break this TV and I don't care because I'm so angry and I need her to become aware that I'm being serious right now. And this method of communication, this dynamic is not working, right? Something needs to change. I don't know what's going on yet. Oh, this is awesome, actually. And I don't know how to articulate because I don't understand the underlying patterns of nuance and language and meaning that we're doing right now in this relationship. And so I hit a breaking point. I was just so frustrated with just like not making progress with myself. It wasn't even at her. It was with myself. I was getting so angry and frustrated at not being able to understand the nuances of myself. And so I got angry and I threw the glass. And after that, I was just like, I see in the world what happens when people propagate misunderstanding. I've tried this technique. I've tried what I've learned, right? I've grown up in this sort of cognitive function and environment where a certain threshold gets crossed and then it's like okay to use physical violence. That's what seems to be like how I learned it when I was a kid. I tried that technique and I was like, these outcomes, they're not really, I don't enjoy them. I feel miserable afterwards. I have a huge internal state of dissonance and confusion. And no matter what I do, I still maintain that internal state of dissonance and confusion. Don't like it. So I abandoned the concept. I was like, there's gotta be another way to articulate and navigate through life without having to necessarily invoke physical like aggression or that sort of method of expressing myself. And so, and that's why it was so perfect, actually. Coincidentally, right? I had this huge, beautiful experience with her. And then actually I got my cat. I don't even talk about my cat. She's not even that. I mean, she's important. I love you, Ophelia, but I mean, that's not here nor there. She's dead. Sorry, it wasn't funny. But I love her. Going from that state, right? I was in a very interesting state of internal dissonance, right? I had just come from navigating professional school, right? I went to an Ivy League school, right? Thinking like, wow, what a pinnacle, what an achievement. But the entire time I was there, actually, I felt this internal dissonance. I was just like, there's something I'm not understanding about myself. What is it? I'm missing something. What am I missing as far as my understanding? And it just like bothered me so much. And so when something bothers you, right, you go about like, you can't, if you sit and think about it all day without doing anything, you're not going to really, it's hard to get stimulation or inspiration to perceive it another way or think about it another way. And so I just put it on the back burner. I mean, obviously it burns you up, right? You think about it. I used to get to a point where certain concepts or certain things that I did, my actions, plagued me so much on how to try to analyze it and figure out what occurred in that situation that it just like consumes your thoughts, right? But then you get to a certain threshold where you reach physical exhaustion where you're just like, I can't keep doing this, right? And so whenever that occurred, right, I would just recognize it was there, but I would just do things like, that's how I got into CrossFit, because I was trying to find a way to figure out how to learn and understand myself better. And that actually goes into it. This is where Ophelia comes in, and this goes into like all my relationship, because when that breakup happened, right, and it was very abrupt, right, I couldn't physically go visit her, right? I was separated in Turkey, and you can't leave Turkey. The base is on lockdown. It was actually really cool. I equated it to adult summer camp because there's nothing but adults, and all the dependents and retirees were gone, or not. There was never retirees. All dependents and kids and stuff. They were all gone because it was a remote assignment because of the coup that had happened. I went right after the coup occurred. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but it occurred. But while I was there, it was perfect for me because I was literally put into a situation where I was basically in an environment that was equated to going to the tabernacle, right? Going into the quiet room, receiving that kind of like nature therapy, things like that, to help quiet all the noise and the thoughts and logic that's occurring, to help perceive certain key pieces that I was missing about understanding myself. And it was extraordinary. I learned so much there, because you guys, are you aware, like everyone can feel, right, where you like understand something But then some, like it happens a lot with kids, right? Kids say the darndest things, like they'll ask questions and you're just like, I can't explain this concept to you because you're not going to understand it because you're too young. When in essence, what you're essentially doing is, I haven't thought of a different way where I can utilize my words to explain a complex topic in a simplistic way that this child can understand me. How do I do that, right? And in essence, people oftentimes, it's a natural instinct to just be invoked to a state where, you're not going to be able to understand it, therefore I'm not even going to try. When essentially what you're articulating and explaining to someone is, I don't know how to explain this to you, so it's easier for me to state to you that you won't understand it because it's too complex. So I didn't like that. And so I just kept thinking and searching for ways to articulate myself. I was like, guys, there's no way that this is the best we can do. This is the best utilization of words. I'm like, there's no way this is the best utilization of thought and words. And emotions, right? I was like, because I thought about it more too, and I was just like, because emotions, like, because everyone keeps talking about how, right, it's important to embrace all the emotions and things like that. Oh, this is going into the journey of how I even got to the point where I'm at today. I guess that's what this is turning into. I'm just rambling on how I got to my cognitive state today. Because once I established a state of stability within myself where I felt comfortable enough, safe enough to explore certain memories and concepts and thoughts that I had experienced, it opened up a whole new threshold of understanding and exploring imagination and novel discovery and things like that, and piecing together things and perceiving things to a greater depth. And where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so I was in Turkey. It was basically a perfect state because I was in like isolation, completely unfamiliar environment. And I was forced to utilize everything that I had previously learned in order to navigate that environment when I was aware, right? The worst thing that could happen to someone is to be aware that you're in a state of dissonance and to not understand how to resolve it. That is so challenging. You're just like, I'm aware that I feel disheveled inside. Even though everything on the outside, I'm performing super well, right? The academy teaches time management and things very fluidly. It's just like efficiency as far as doing linear processes is just like, it's child's play. But then integrating multiple processes simultaneously and complexities, right? Like for instance, anything I'm saying right now is already outdated because the present has already occurred. It's already moved on. Right? Technically it's outdated. However, but when you utilize we don't talk about that. So I was in a perfect state, right? Where I was able to start perceiving nuances about myself and to start noticing nuances about myself, right? Because most times people say, why did I feel that way, right? They're like, oh, I'm so angry. And the immediate thing they do is they point to like, why do I feel this way? What caused this? Just like how my dad did, right? When he lost his cat, he was like, what he wanted to blame, right? The thing that actually caused his cat to be taken were the coyotes, right? That's what technically did the actual act. However, that wasn't the origin of that moment in time. The origin of that moment in time was his decision to punish her and to put her outside. But that guilt and shame that he carried, right? Because on a subconscious level, he recognized it was his fault. And it broke him. It broke him because that cat, and I went through this with Ophelia. We'll talk about it with Ophelia actually. Because animals are a way for people to have a constant source of support and solace. Like, right? It's a state, it's a constant source of tangible love that people will feel and perceive, right? That's what people often utilize pets for, and that's what I utilized Ophelia for. And I didn't realize it till hindsight because I took her death so catastrophically. Actually, no, I did take it hard. Yeah, I did take it hard. I was trying to think. I was like, wait, did I cry? And I said, no, I did take it hard because I was trying afterwards. My actions afterwards were trying to find avenues of exploring the concepts of how, like, how does it work when you have like DNA or something like that? How can you recreate something that was once lost? That's what my mind went to, because I was like, I'm aware that energy gets recycled, so the concept, anyways, whatever. I took her death really hard because I realized she was my source of love and support. Because that cat, right? I had her when I had this first huge pivotal moment in my life, this first relationship, right? Fresh out of dental school. I am given I was labeled as an officer in the military, right? Y'all, they make fun of butter bars and stuff for a reason, because they are like dumbs. Everyone's aware when a butter bar rolls in. A butter bar is like a fresh graduate, right? Fresh meat. You come in there, and then like the senior enlisted, the people that have been in for like 18, 20 years are just like, they're there, and it totally gets on everyone's nerves when someone comes in and acts like they understand everything, and then people are like, get out of here, like you're brand new, like you have nothing, you can't, no, right? And it peeves them when they're just like, especially when someone comes in, academy grads too, they have they call them ring knockers sometimes, because when the academy ring is so big that when you like hit stuff, it like makes a sound. Oh yeah, big ring knocker, I agree. And so, I was aware, right? The one thing they teach you at the academy, like all the senior, like the enlisted, harp on being like, find your senior enlisted, find them, take them, like ask them to mentor you, this and that, right? It was so heavy into this like power dynamic. People are so, I don't know, it's such a weird concept for me actually to perceive. It's just like this power dynamic, because I don't think I necessarily enjoy leading. I enjoy teaching though. I enjoy talking, and I just enjoy like meeting new people. So yeah. Where was I going with that? Oh wait, anyways, so Ophelia was my support animal. She was my source. She was there for me. If you look at animals, guys, if you look at your pets or things like that, pets are really good mile markers, because pets usually last for significant periods of development and growth in a person's life. And so that's why I took her death so hard, because I adopted her actually as a senior cat. And I bought stuff because I always wanted a cat since the academy. I was aware I was going to get one. So I even bought cat supplies, but all 4 years through dental school, I never got a cat. I never adopted one, because I was aware. I was like, this is not the time that I am ready to be responsible enough to take care of another life in such an intimate manner, right? And I finally met Ophelia. She was a senior cat, y'all. Oh my gosh, my sweet girl. I don't even have a picture of her anywhere. When she, I guess they nicknamed her Princess, because she was so well taken care of. And I bought her from like a foster home, y'all. There's people out there that are some real nice people. There's some cat people out there that really like cats, right? I'm gonna be vulgar real quick for my bros, y'all. I love pussy, but that's a lot of pussy in a house, right? See, aren't words and meaning fun, right? Anyways, they told me the story, right? And this was right before I was about to go to Turkey too. And so they told me this, they posted her on her website, and they called her Princess, because how they got her was they're like age unknown senior cat. And her picture was just like, her ears were just kind of like tilted, being like, bro, what is this place? I went from living la cush life to this. What is this place? Where am I? Like, her face was just hilarious. That bozo cat. She was like a dog, y'all. Like a dog. Oh, maybe I'll make her a picture of my thing. Or when I upload this. But that's the reason I got her. And so when I went there, I emailed them, and I was like, wow, she just resonated with me. Seeing her picture and reading her description, and I was aware, right, senior cats don't get adopted. And I was like, this cat is beautiful. She had the most beautiful, like, she always had her patitas juntas. She always, whenever she sat, her little paws would always be together. And she was like a damn dog, y'all. Like, she loved food. She loved human food. like nobody's business. I was like, I think you're a raccoon. Like, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, she got so aggressive, like so hungry for food. Like, she would paw at me. And you know, cats are kind of like dainty compared to dogs. Y'all, this cat was like thinking she's a dog, but actually in a cat's body. And like, she would try to paw, and then she would literally come up to my mouth. And like, one time I was eating a taco, and she came up behind me on the couch, came on my shoulder, and came in and bit it. And I was like, ugh. I was like, Ophelia. She was having a good old time. Loved food. Loved herself some human food. Loved herself food. Period. A little chunk. Anyways, she was my little buddy, man. She was there for me during very significant moments of my life, like when I was navigating the nuances of trying to grow, when I met my exes, when I went through my car accidents, when I went through buying a home, when I went through the most catastrophic heartache of my life. Like, yo, I went through such bad heartache at one point. I went to a training when my ex before my ex-fiance broke up with me for the final time, and I finally accepted. I became aware, and I was like, this is over. Y'all, when you have that moment of clarity where you finally realize, like, this future and this dream and this belief that you have in your head for like what you envision, right? Like, y'all, like, that's how I imagine just like pure loss feels like. It's just like this person's ripped from your existence, and you recognize that dream that you had, that life that you had already built, that you can perceive in your head, just like shatters and blows up in front of your face, and you have to live with it every day. You're like, whoa, this sucks. So I hit a point where actually I was just like, this is actually more challenging than I'm used to. And so I was like, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to tell someone that I'm not okay. And so I went to work one day, and I was just like, I can't be here. Like, I am not in a good state. Actually, I wasn't even at work yet because I was at a training. I got sent to like this, like, I don't know, like fake deployment thing that's in the north side of San Antonio. And I get there
Good morning. Ooh. I just got back from the gym. So.
No, you did not. You're right here. I remember the first day I arrived at the training, I got there, and I remember texting two people, and I was like, y'all, I'm not okay. And I realized I'm not okay because a thought crossed my head. I was just like, you know, I would rather die because this is the perfect time to end with such beautiful memory. This is the perfect time to kill myself. Or like, you know, like, I was like, I started pondering. The thought pondered into my head. I was like, I actually think this is actually a perfect ending of where I desire to end my existence. I have all these beautiful memories. This is a good spot. And then I was like, wait a second. Well, that was an intriguing thought. And I was like, ooh, let's explore this. Are you okay? And then I like started thinking about it more, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I would be that way, where my next logical step would be to end my existence. And I was just like, is that something I really want to do? And I said, it's not, because that's as far as I got with it, right? But then the fact that I even thought about it made me scared. I was just like, wow, do I really understand myself if I'm even having that thought? And then that's when I broke down, because I shocked myself so much. I was so surprised that I followed that line of logic. And it scared me, and so I started crying. I texted my friends. I was like, I'm not in a good spot, y'all. I'm not in a good spot, because the concept of physical death, right? I thought about physical death. And one of the scariest things for people oftentimes is death, right? That is like oftentimes defined as like the most, what's it called? I don't know, like the finality thing, whatever, right? All the things associated with death. We don't gotta go into it. And so when I recognized that, the shock of experiencing a cognitive thought where I was okay with entertaining that idea shook me to the core, y'all. And so that's when I text my commander, and I was like, or I text my friend, and I was like, or my coworker, and I was like, I can't be here. And I called her, and I was like, I'm not in a good spot. I can't be here. I'm in a bad spot emotionally, cognitively. This is not going to be like the purpose of the training is to like demonstrate your skill and stuff like that, right? I was already aware that like, hey, yeah, I can pull my stuff together. I've been through worse, but like at this moment in time, I'm going to try to choose something differently because I feel like I am safe enough to articulate myself and I'm supported enough by my leadership team that I'm just gonna speak out about how I truly feel and let's see what happens. And so I did. And it was so funny. Oh my God, my poor commander. He was so cute, right? I had been crying. No one was aware of why I was upset because I didn't tell anyone this whole process occurred. And that's what I keep harping on people because I was in no state of fear. I was in actual no physical harm, but because of experiencing something that I had already oriented as something that was negative, like this is like the ultimate finality of like there's no return from this kind of thing, right? And so even having that thought come into my head made me like super scared. But then I got so immersed into the experience because of my emotionally driven behavior. But I'm aware now, right now, that when I feel those emotions, it's just a signal that I'm missing information. But when you're in that state, y'all, everyone's perceived it, y'all. When you're in that state of like where you feel all this physiological change, your heart's racing, it's like it almost feels like a panic attack, I guess. And I was just like, wow, I got triggered by even having a thought, and my body physiologically responded very, very drastically with emotionally driven behavior in that moment of time when I even had a thought. That's intriguing, and it made me curious, right? It took a while. It took a while to get to my curiosity, right? And I'm learning new stuff as I'm talking about it with y'all. But I recognized, I said, why did I even have such a profound physiological response as if I'm not safe simply by having a thought? What about me do I not understand that I can't even feel safe to think? Like that's gonna pigeonhole me. I should never be afraid to even have a thought. Because a thought, right? A thought doesn't necessarily correlate to physical, tangible reality. A thought is an idea, a concept, an abstract. You can even classify it as a delusion if you want to, because it doesn't actually tangibly exist. However, the cognition, when that state gets invoked, right? If you're scared to even think about something, then that shows that perhaps there is more nuances of how the growth thresholds of where they need to occur. It basically guides you to things that need your attention more in order to get to that threshold, right? So I recognize at that moment in time, this was like 2 years ago. This was actually around when I turned 33. I was just like, I recognized, I said, I need to first, in order to not be afraid to even think, I need to be able to figure out how to feel safe enough to think, right? And so that's when I started to realize, I was like, okay, well then if I don't feel safe enough to even think, how can I even do anything, right? I can't even go in the abstract mode without feeling triggered. So why would I not, right, without feeling internal dissonance? So why would I ever do action, right? Because my actions would be opposite of that, right? Because usually people avoid those states of physiological change. And instead of that, I was just like, that's so fascinating to me. And so I ended up actually doing familiar activities that brought me a source of like solace and comfort, right? So I could think about scary topics as I'm going through it, right? Because I kept circling being like, man, what is wrong with me that I wouldn't be loved? Why did she dump me and just ghost me and leave no answer, give me no explanation? What is it? And then I thought about it and I was like, wait a second. And I thought about it as I was like, right, I spent like I love breakups though, y'all, because I end up going on like super dope shopping sprees. I get all hardcore into working out. I get all sexy, right? But I recognize, right? I was like, huh. And as I did all these things, because I bought like a couple $1,000s worth of plants to put in my backyard. And as I was digging, like I had like a shovel that broke, and I was like, and the ground here is super hard. And so my ex actually had like a huge pole that it's like super weighted. It's like a pothole digger. And so I wanted to borrow it so bad because my hands were blistering from how I bought like $2,000 worth of plants, and I was hand planting every single one in like ground that is not designed to be planted in without breaking through like rock, because the limestone's so prominent. And I didn't have it, and I was too angry, and I honestly wanted to like punish myself, I think, physically go through physical suffering, because it helped me to cope with my feeling of lack of worthiness and value. Because I just got discarded like a plastic bag, y'all. And I wasn't even turned into microplastics by that point. I was still like a plastic bag drifting through the wind that like not even Katy Perry would have picked up, y'all. That was the other plastic bag that was organic. I was like the non-recyclable plastic bag that everyone hates because a sea turtle like got trapped in it or something like that, you know? Like, that's the plastic bag that everyone's like, you know, doesn't like. Throws into the fire. And then my residue gets left on the log, and I'm just like, guys, I'm still here. I'm still a plastic bag, y'all. So anyways. I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry. Where was I going? Oh yeah, worthlessness. Yeah, right? And so I wanted to physically punish myself, to be like, oh, if you aren't worthy, well then at least you like figure out how to dig a hole, right? You don't need extra stuff to dig a hole. If you're not even worthy to dig a hole, then surely you're not even worthy to have another human in your life, right? I made myself my own version of Holes. If anyone's seen that, that's actually a good book. Y'all, I did have that thought, because when my hands started blistering, I was just like, that's how they felt on Holes. I'm like Shia LaBeouf. I feel it now. I understand it now. But it was so therapeutic, y'all, and I loved it, and I was so determined. I was like, I could have easily went to Home Depot and bought it, but I was like, no, I'm going to do it this way, because I want to do it this way. I want to do the physical manual labor that is inefficient, that takes me longer, that makes me struggle, that hurts, that is harder. It is purposely inefficient because I desire to do this to think more and go through these thoughts. And I did, y'all. I did. I dug it. I did all sorts of thinking. Yeah, that was fun. The majority of those plants ended up dying. Well, because in the winter, I don't like winterize my plants. I go out there and I always tell them, I said, guys, winter's here. I'm aware you are from a tropical region, tiki plant, and you guys, however, I have faith in you, right? Humanity often defines this as survival of the fittest. So survival of the fittest, innovation comes when, you guys are exposed to contrast. So good luck. I'm rooting for you. And coincidentally, right, everyone died. Everyone hibernate, whatever. But actually, things that I planted that I hadn't seen in a couple years, they started to sprout again in my backyard. And I was like, what on earth is this, right? I was like remulching my beds, and I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh my gosh, I planted this a hot minute ago, and it's coming back, and I haven't seen it in a while. I was like, where have you been, you son of a gun? Look at you, survival of the fittest. Get out of here. It's just like so exciting to see. I'm like, hey guys, I thought you died. So now when I have a plant that dies, I'll continuously water it and maintain it, or like check it for propagation of renewal growth, because I've had some wild things happen. I'm just like, you ain't supposed to be here. What happened there? Oh, like my front planter box. I love morning glories. Oh, that's actually reminds me, because in Turkey, I got really into gardening, because y'all, I understand why people think that, or I believe that biblical times, like Turkey is very fertile. The Fertile Crescent, it's nicknamed the Fertile Crescent, y'all. You stick anything in that ground, it's gonna grow. It grows so lush, so beautiful. I have never seen such fertile soil before in my life. I would go to the grocery store and buy produce and stick it in the ground, and it would grow. Like, that's how I had tomatoes. That's how I had different types of vegetables. I didn't even have to purchase seeds. I literally went to the store, and I think nowadays certain genetic modifications prevent that. So people, I don't know, that they make it so they can't propagate out, so people can't do that as much, I guess. I don't know. Like seedless watermelon, things like that, right? Humans can genetically guide certain things to get certain desired outcomes that they wish for, right? So that happened. That actually reminds me, y'all, because, sorry, I'm going to go on a whimsy tangent here. Because, right, the human species is already aware about how to guide evolution. We do it all the time, we're just unaware we're doing it. Because we're operating from a system of fear-based, of trying to do like a control dynamic, right? Mosquitoes, for instance, y'all. Mosquitoes are responsible, yes, for malaria, for very catastrophic things. But is everyone aware about how malaria even started to propagate? It's because people with a detrimental trait, sickle cell, right? That is a detrimental human trait. If you have sickle cell, you normally die. Or you don't live very long compared to people without it. However, there is a geographic location where people with sickle cell, and they got malaria, they survived. Why is that? Because the treponema or whatever, the bacteria, malaria, can't go through its reproduction cycle completely because of sickle cell. And so that's how sickle cell propagated and spread more frequently or whatever. But now we're trying to combat mosquitoes, right? It was like a huge thing when I think the DEET or whatever was discovered actually when they were doing the Panama Canal, because they were having such problems with malaria or whatnot. And so I think that's where they discovered like malarial treatment or like some of the different compounds that they utilize to kill mosquitoes. But now science is figuring out like, oh gosh, mosquitoes are evolving to be resistant to things. Coincidentally, just like other animals, right? Bacteria, antibiotic resistance, it's a thing, guys. Like we were the promoters of evolution, right? Without our stimulus, without our contrast, we were technically the bad guys to the bacteria. The bacteria were the victims, and they decided to stop being victims, and so they're like, fine, you guys are going to try to eradicate us? Well, we're going to eradicate you, right? And so then they evolved, and now that we have antibacterial resistance. Bummer, right? But that's fun. That's a fun concept, though, right? How the contrast, the villain and victim play keeps going, right? Doesn't that sound familiar to everyone? For every victim, there must be a villain, right? Because a villain is the one that provides the contrast for the victim to grow. Because the victim doesn't desire to seek contrast on their own, right? That's a very interesting cognitive shift that if anyone's able to make that jump, I'll be quite impressed from this rambling of thought that I've done, because to purposely seek contrast in your life instead of waiting for it to happen to you and waiting for that stimulus to arrive is how you get out of victim mentality a bit, right? I am the captain of my fate, I am the master of my soul. What is that? Invictus poem? Beautiful poem. Beautiful, beautiful poem. The Invictus Games, right? Prince Harry did that. Who doesn't love Harry? And Meghan Markle, right? They're cute. They're fun. Harry still has hair. He's Harry. Although he's starting to get some baldness up there. But he's not as bad as Will. Slick Willie. Not President Clinton. Willie, his brother, who's bald. That was a perfect example, right? About how I layered so many different things of whimsy, right? Because I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul, right? The concept of Invictus. Meaning does that the same way. And I loved, because someone in the comments, actually, I was scrolling through trying to reply to people today. Someone in the comments wrote about, because my name, I'm going to be Nancy. And someone wrote, oh my gosh, maybe you should pick the name like Ron or Ronnie. But then I thought about, well, Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan. And I was like, oh my gosh, you don't realize how cool what you did. You just connected meaning, right? Because the names Nancy and Ron, right? Ron Weasley, Nancy Drew, right? You can pull from so many things, right? When I gave the name Nancy, this person, mine, jumped to Ron, and then it naturally again jumped again to Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan. And I said, do you see the pattern, the connections they're making? That is showing a higher depth of cognitive capacity that they're accessing and utilizing. Because independently, right, the word Nancy and the word Ron, the word Nancy, You can go so many places with that name. Everyone can do it. And I would love for people to say the comments and show their spirals of whimsy where they go, because not connected to anything, right? Because if someone says, how is LDS connected to Ronald Reagan? Now you have an example of how you can do it, right? And the person demonstrated that. That's how you start to connect larger system patterns. If you can start practicing, right? You practice small first, and that's how you develop a higher capacity for thought. And I love it because people in the comments are starting to show huge diversity of expression. And I love it. And that's a demonstration that you guys are understanding and you're tapping into a higher level of cognitive processing. Let's go! And, let me go on a pilgrimage real quick because I have some cool news to tell everyone. Actually, I don't even know if I talked about it. Okay, y'all, I'm back from my pilgrimage. Super. Okay, and I brought this too because someone asked in the comments, and I wanted to tell a story about that. Wow, this went on a whimsy of thought. Again, I apologize. This is how thought works. You guys don't realize you're learning. You're learning through play. You make a lot more neural connections when you learn through play. I made a video earlier today. Wait, did I mention it in this one? I made 2 videos yet, but I made 2 videos earlier, but I didn't make them public. I think one of them got too deep into the weeds, so I didn't do it. Or I was having trouble uploading. I've never had a video upload that slowly. And so I think it was just too much at one time. The Holy Ghost was like, settle down, young Bessie. Like, it ain't time yet to release those whimsies. And so I was like, okay, in my Holy Ghost blanket. But I quit drinking. Yeah, when I went to Las Palapas, I told the whole story about when I went to Las Palapas last night. And yeah, I quit drinking and doing drugs. So this is the final product of it. The wine did turn to water, y'all. Congrats. And so I'll release that video at some point. But yeah, we're switched to water already. And we're off drugs. But I bought this because I went on a whimsy one day. Actually, this is how curiosity works, y'all. This is a fun way you can practice this too. Because when you start making these small connections like this, that is how you start to perceive more, right? You first have to demonstrate to yourself that you even understand the basic principles, right? You have to walk, or you have to crawl before you can walk. You have to walk before you can run, right? You can sprint if you want to, right? I'm the type of person, I'm like Alice in Wonderland, y'all. I jump and I'm just like, YOLO, right? We'll figure this out when we get there. And so I've gotten to that point now because I've finally gotten out of the mindset of being, I don't feel embarrassment or shame, y'all. If that isn't obvious, right? I don't feel embarrassment or shame. It's just not a thing for me. And if I feel it coming on, I'll articulate it and I'll just say it to y'all. Be like, wow, I'm feeling embarrassed or ashamed, right? But when I tell it, and that's the thing. I think people are aware when I tell things, even when they get emotional, I don't actually, like, I'm giggling on the inside, and that's what makes it so fun and whimsy, because I'm just giggling the whole time because I don't actually feel a state of dissonance in me. Like, it's honestly kind of funny because I remember the first moment where I stopped myself and I was like, wow, when's the last time I felt anger? And I had to sit and think about it. I was like, wait a second, what does it feel like? Hold on, let me think about it real quick. What does it feel like? What does it feel like, right? And I had to think about it, about what it felt like. To feel like everyone can feel when that surge starts to come up and you or you feel like a pit in your stomach, right? You can feel the antsiness building inside of you. You're like, oh snap, right? But at this, I used to feel that too, but at this point I'm like, y'all, I'm eating my popcorn with y'all because I have no idea where my thoughts are gonna go. But yeah, anyways, I purchased this because I went to a store. I was chasing curiosity one day because I just wanted to eat at a new sandwich shop. I like sandwiches. So I wanted to try a new sandwich shop that I hadn't been to before. And I ended up going to this place called like the Bread Basket. And it was in this like whimsy little like complex. It literally like, I thought it was just like a place. And it was called the Alley. It's like the Artist Alley or something. And then the address was like 555 Bitters Road, or I don't know, something like that. And so I was like, all right, dope, I'll go there. And the whole place was a complex built up on like, it was like a boardwalk complex that wasn't necessarily in a boardwalk. It was like a little like, what's the best way to describe it? I would describe it as like one of those like floating villages from Waterworld. That probably no one anticipated that analogy, did they? I don't know why I went to Waterworld. For some reason, Kevin Costner came in. You know what? This is why I went to Waterworld. Oh, that's hilarious. Isn't that a fun connection? You get what I mean, right? It's just like a series of like shops and stuff, but then they were all connected in like a little complex, but in between was like a boardwalk where you can like walk through and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is unique. It's like a little village, little hidden village. And so I found this guy's shop, and he sells local trinkets, and he started during COVID. He sells local trinkets of local artists that, and his shop is full of random things. That's where I bought my man candle. Oh no, I have to go get that, y'all. I have to show you the epitome of men's creativity, and it's so funny. It's so last pilgrimage, I swear. Okay, hold on. No. We're gonna play a game. We're gonna play a game, y'all. I want everyone to imagine. If you were to imagine a man, just a typical man, your typical, every stereotype you can think of for a man, right? If he was going to design a candle, what scent would it be? What's a typical thing that is, like, not a scent that he wears, right? What's a typical candle that a man would create based on a scent that he enjoys from his actions, from his activities, his hobbies? Okay? And then if he were to design that candle, how would he design his label? Oh, this is such a great contrast to like the before, like what women design crafts versus men design crafts, right? Men design crafts versus women design crafts. Right? And everyone saw the video with the quilt, right? Okay. I went into this shop and it was just so funny, and the dude was so awesome with what he did. This is the candle I bought, y'all. And it's literally called, it got a little rusted, but it's literally called Texas Man Candles. Make Men Great Again. Oh, isn't that adorable? And literally, it's massive. It's painter's tape, y'all. Painter's tape, and it says beer. Handwritten. I was like, this is GOAT status. And it smelled good. And I was like, and he had different scents. I think he had like a WD-40 as a scent. Just like super funny, like real life, like, wow. That is too hilarious, y'all. Like, seriously, this is genius. If I ever saw this, if ever a man showed up and did this, I would be like, bro, that is dope. You took simplicity to extraordinary levels because everyone can relate to this. How funny is this, y'all? It's just like, it's just so cool. It's just so cool and simple, but it invokes so much comedy and humor. But obviously it takes a man to have some serious confidence in himself to be able to do this. Because most people would see this and be like, wow, you're trying to sell that? And this man, I was like, dude, I love these candles. And that's why I started talking to him, because I saw this. But then I talked to him and I saw this in his store. And I was like, whoa, that's dope. Because I had just come back from Ohio. Which, by the way, if anyone ever has gone to Cleveland, not Cleveland, wherever the Arnold Classic is, you know, like the big Arnold, I'll be back sign, right? Conan the Barbarian. Oh, don't I look like that? Conan the Barbarian? Like, I'll be back. Hold on, let me hold my glass. Doesn't this look like, wait, hold on, I got to hold my beer. Don't I look like, I don't know, like Arnold Schwarzenegger? A female version? I don't know. They have the houses there, y'all. They have half houses, like literal half houses, and not like refuge camps. They're like addresses. Like there's people that live in like 46 and a half and like 45 and a half and whatnot. And I was like, whoa, where, like what? I was so confused by it, but I finally reasoned because I'd never seen it before. Y'all, if you ever go there, look around at the houses and you'll see half houses. And it confused me so much, but I finally figured out what I believe occurred. And I actually texted this to our group text like a week or so, I think, after we got back. And like, you know, like after you finish a trip and the text kind of dies out, I like went back to it because I thought I was so excited to tell them, being like, I figured out the half houses. Because I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Because it was so unique. I was like, wow, that's unique. What occurred here? So what they did, right, what I assumed, right, the buildings, right, they had these old buildings, you can convert them into different apartments and complexes. So what I think occurred was the building was originally like the address and the address, and somehow along the way the building did renovations, or there was an extra unit that was, the unit was split or whatnot, and the only way to solve that was to just make it a half. Or sorry, the single address or whatever, and it would be a half or something like that. I forget how it was laid out, but I had to like, I was going through and everywhere, I took a couple pictures of the different examples, and I was trying to look at the different architecture and see the patterns, and I figured it out. It was because of some sort of how the houses were originally constructed to the time when the half houses were, the address was added to that innovation. The simplest way and the logical way to make sure it flowed and not disrupt anything else was to make a half unit for an address. And they do it. And I was like, huh, that is cool innovation, right? Because how many times have people wrote to like, right, platform 9 3/4, right? Ohio has half houses, like literal addresses that have a half. Super cool. Anyways, like, can you imagine going to a address, be like, oh yeah, I live on 465 and a half, like Lover's Lane or whatever it is. So I bought this. Oh, I like when it's bright. So I got this. Oh, my screen went black, so I lost my...
So we're gonna continue on with the...
I don't know why it's on this. Sometimes my computer does weird things. I wasn't even watching this. This was on the scammer parable. Oh, okay, fine. I'll give an update on that. Y'all, I had to cut ties with my scammer. He was getting too dependent on me. He was and I just harped on him too, being like, I'm proud of you, man. Like, he finally broke with this concept of money. He went and got his package. Did I ever say that? He went and got his package. The fee was $50 actually, that his government, it was weird, y'all. His government, like the literal government, held the package saying you need to pay more money to get your package. And I was like, bro, this is like total scam vibes. I think I wrote about it. He ended up getting $50 or whatever and getting it. And you know the first thing this dude says out of his mouth? First thing he texts me. Oh, sorry, back to this. So this looked like a gavel, because I just got back from Ohio. Looked like a gavel, because I went and saw, like, I love looking at local art, and they had this huge thing called the gavel, and it's like literally a giant life-size gavel. It was like the size of a semi-truck, bigger than a semi-truck. And I was like, that's dope. And so when I saw this, it was like sitting there, and I was like, oh my gosh, that looks like a gavel. That's so funny. It's like, boom, right? And I was like, huh, and also I don't have a sledgehammer, so this works, right? So, right, imagine me, right, hit the nail on the head, right? Me taking this, and then me taking like a little, like one of those like finishing nails, and being like, yeah, hold on, I got it, right? I hit it right on the head there. Oh, it made me laugh so hard, so that's why I got it. Anyways, the scammer though, oh, you don't want to use, this is Thor's hammer now. I'm Thor too. What other names can I use? The first thing out of this boy's mouth was, where are my shoes? I don't have my soccer shoes in there. And I said, excuse me? Excuse me? Hold on, let me, and I was like, oh. And so I made him aware. I said, you're aware that I spent over $700 to send you anything. And the first thing that you say out of your mouth is, where are your shoes? And I said, well, the shoes make you better at soccer? Will they magically make you faster? What will the shoes do for you that you can't do for yourself? You have shoes. You just don't have the shoes you want. Okay, this isn't Dorothy. This isn't like Cinderella's story, y'all. This is like, you have to put forth effort. You ain't gonna make, you like, the probability and possibility of him ever making it to professional soccer is nearly nil, y'all. It is. Realistically, right? I'm aware of the probability and possibility of him ever achieving his dreams of becoming a professional football player are nearly zero. But I don't care about that because I want to inspire in him to believe in himself. Because even if that doesn't work out though, because every time he works and shows the effort, he's working towards that and he's showing himself that he can do it. And so I thought that was going to be enough to like inspire him to like believe in himself, or at least try to like, I don't know, demonstrate some sort of cognitive shift. Every now and then he would do it, right? So when the thankfulness wears off, that's when you recognize whether the understanding was truly captured, the meaning behind it, right? And I articulated to him through the roof about him trying to just be like, you can do it, but you have to try, you know? And I'm going to send this to you, right? To support, you can watch all those things. But then he asked for money. He asked for money again. He tried to bring his dad into it, saying his dad is dying because he didn't have medicine. And I said, money is not going to solve anything for you. Your happiness, you telling me that I'm going to prove to myself, right? And he even always said, I'm going to prove to you that I can do that. I'm going to make you proud. And I said, no, you cannot do this for me. If you're doing this for me, then you're going to fail. You need to do this for yourself. The only person that you need to make proud is yourself. Because you're the only one that's going to achieve anything in your life. No one's going to achieve anything for your life for you. And I said, what is that going to do for you asking me for a handout? Got my mama's hammer, man. Not got my daddy's hammer. This is daddy's hammer, man. Daddy's home. Oh, I whacked a mole. I just bopped him some sense into his head. And I was just like, boy, you're going to come at me and try to... And again, this is what occurs, right? When novelty wears off, when that inspiration wears off and the true understanding wasn't there, they revert back to their old patterns. He reverted back to his old pattern. And then he tried to warn me that like all his friends are jealous and that they're going to try to scam me too. And he wanted to warn me. And I said, oh, honey, it's okay. You can give him my phone number. I don't care. Like, that's not how this works when you have awareness and discernment, right? When you're not emotionally driven. And so I told him, I said, look, I said, that's unfortunate about your dad. How's your soccer training going? Right? And he just kept saying like, please, like I need money. Like I can't do this. I need money. And I'm just like, then make it. Go make money. You have the capacity. I've given you the opportunities, like, right? And I even told him, I reminded him, I said, do you remember that moment when I told you I would only give you money ever once in your life? And I asked you if you want to use that opportunity. And you declined it at first when you wrote your beautiful story and I shared it. And then when I kept the conversation with him, whatever, and I said, you know what, tell you what, because I found out finally that his dream for his life is to be a soccer player. So I said, you know what, I will give you something directly to support that. And because the principle matters, right? If I just handed him money, guess what he would have used it on? Whatever, right? If I give him actual soccer plot supplies that are invested in him, now he has to make the decision, do I sell my soccer supplies? Or, you know, he has to make that decision. Now, he has stuff of monetary value that he can sell to pay for his father's stuff. But he's choosing not to because he's asking for more. He wants what he has and he wants more. And I said, that's not how that works. Good luck, buddy. And I just made him aware of it. And I was like, listen. And it's the most catastrophic thing for me to perceive when someone doesn't understand. When they consistently demonstrate, when they articulate, right? When I tell people, it's very obvious to tell when someone's in a state of understanding versus someone in a state of learning. Because understanding cannot be faked. Dot period. Dot period. The thresholds of what someone understands versus what someone, and when someone's in like a state of ignorance or whatnot, it's very obvious. Right? When someone cannot demonstrate consistent actions, consistent patterns, right? You're just, well, actually, even the patterns that people demonstrate, right? People are unaware of the patterns they demonstrate. And so it's very obvious. It's very easy to orient oneself to doing that if you're aware of the nuances of meaning and words. And again, you guys are starting to get that, right? With all the comments I'm seeing and all the diversity. With all the diversity of thought and creativity, I love it. Guys, keep it coming. This is how you start to look like the most intelligent person in the room, because you have a higher level of awareness and perception that your ability to navigate. When you understand, and I think this is why I think maybe people feel like this is like whimsy and novel. I'm telling you, in our lifetime, what I am demonstrating, articulating to you now, children in like kindergarten and elementary school are going to be demonstrating the same type of capacity and cognition as I am now at that young of an age. And can you imagine someone with my level of cognition and perception and ability to understand and navigate existence having that at the age of 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old? Do you know what that does to a human being? Do you know what that does to the planet? Okay. You get there by first putting in the work to learn and understand, right? And so y'all are doing it. And LDS is like, y'all are like an innovative hub. Y'all are literally just so, this is why I love LDS. This is why I love LDS, y'all. Great minds think alike, right? I naturally found my way to LDS because I was like, this is where the ripple's going to start, and we're going to kick it off, y'all. We're going to hype it up. We're going to kick this off. Latter-day Saints, let's go. I love it. It's just so inspiring. So inspiring that I stopped drinking, y'all. Well, there's different things I'm demonstrating with my doing what I'm doing. But if anyone's curious, you can reach out to me, because I've talked long enough. I'll upload this. Maybe if I'll keep talking, I'll make another video. Wait, wow, what was that? I don't even know what I was doing there. Clearly, I have different patterns going on in my head. Peace.